Hello, my marketing and entrepreneur friends. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Let's Talk Marketing podcast, where I, your host, Katya Allison, get to explore the latest trends, techniques, and strategies in the world of marketing. Now, in today's episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing Maria Sipka, co-founder and EVP at Linqia. Now, not only does she share her journey as a young entrepreneur in Australia to co-founding Linqia, she also gives us with the why behind her mission to bring consciousness into advertising through meaningful storytelling. Now, together we explore the power of curiosity and community in marketing, as well as her personal approach to innovation through the Give Code. She shares how she uses social listening and hashtags to help her gain insights into people's lives, as well as how we should challenge brands to connect through vulnerability instead of selling. Marinate on that one for a little bit. For those struggling to personalize, she also shares advice on voice of customer research. And one of my favorite parts of this discussion is around challenges of being a woman entrepreneur. As a listener, you will walk away with impactful learnings around customer relationships and personal growth today. So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into it. Let's talk marketing. Maria, welcome to the Let's Talk Marketing podcast. Super excited to have you on here. We finally hit record because you and I were gabbing up a storm before that.
Thank you, Katya. I could talk to you until the cows go home, which they never do. So
until the Sacramento cows come home. That's a good callback there. So let's have the audience get to know you a little bit, right? So what is your first, or what would you consider was your first marketing role?
Oh my goodness. So the response isn't probably what anyone's going to expect. I grew up in a beachside town about an hour north of Sydney called Yamina Beach. And my first job was in a real estate agency behind the counter. And so I got to know all the agents, the landlords, people coming in to buy property, people coming in to rent property, and then the team at the real estate agency. So and I'm so curious, I literally would speak to everyone and learn. And I was like 16 and I started to connect the dots. And I very quickly realized that when you actually are curious and you listen and you learn from people, that you actually have a tremendous opportunity to add value to the whole ecosystem. So that I would consider that my first marketing role.
A part of the reason that I love to ask this question is exactly for the reason that you just said. It's not always the role that you define as like, oh, this had marketing in it. It is so interesting to see how other people view it, because I think that you hit the nail on the head. So much of marketing is being able to connect the dots. And we talked about this a little before we signed on, is the listening part of it. So you have to listen to be able to know like, oh, where all of the dots are so that you can connect them. So we talked about where you were. Where are you now? What is your current role?
So I'm the co-founder at Linqia, and it's interesting. When we founded the company with my co-founder Nada, I was like, you know what? I don't need a title. I don't even really need a role per se. I want to spend 100% of my time with brand marketers out in the market, with the influencers, with our team, and really, again, listening, being curious. We have this like ideology at Linqia where it's just like skate where the puck's going. And in order to do that, you truly need to be able to show up with this innate sense of curiosity. So my role very much today is in innovation. It is in strategy. It's understanding what are the pain points. I always say every marketer that I speak with, I'm like, what's the chasm you're looking to cross? Like, what is it that you truly desire that could just unlock so much value, not only within your marketing division, but within your company? So that's pretty much where I spend a majority of the time, also within the team. I work very closely with our client services team, with our creative strategy team, with the paid media team, the talent partner team, very much hands-on keyboard and hearing from them. right? Because, for example, our talent partner team, there's how many of them that are spending 8 hours a day literally in the entire creator ecosystem, matching, evaluating, understanding, like, are they going to be a fit? Yes, there's technology for that. But what's really extraordinary about the ecosystem we're in, we're human powered. It's not technology
Mm-hmm.
powered. At the core, it's real human beings that have hearts, that have souls, that are, living, breathing, sleeping, and creating. And so that's very much where every single person within our company invests a majority of their time.
I absolutely love what you're saying about that. And this, I think that you've probably actually already even answered this too, because my next question is always, what do you love about what you do? And then there's this converse side to it, right? Of like, if there's anything I could pluck out of your, daily work life, what would that be? So let's start with a positive. What do you love about what you do?
What absolutely lights me up, and if I could literally be doing this from the minute that I woke up to when I go to sleep, it is engaging with other human beings that are equally as passionate, and it's collaborating. It's about, like, as we're out in the world, digitally, physically, and we're absorbing, we're reading, we're conversing, bringing that to the table with a group of smart and equally committed human beings, whether they be the team, whether they be partners or peers or, clients. It's that moment where you come together and you're
Yeah.
solving for something that is going to unlock a tremendous amount of value. That's where the rubber hits the road for me. So
Ooh, I love that. Well, there's good and bad to everything. So tell me what you would pluck out.
So, as you've probably gathered, I'm someone that very easily gets bored with anything that's repetitive, right?
Yeah.
So it's paperwork, it's documenting things, it's rinse and repeat and rinse in the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. And trust me, I've done a lot of that in my career over the last 30 years. So, anything that's redundant, anything that's repetitive, anything where I'm showing up and there is a group of other smart people sitting at the table to go, you don't need me here. Like, I don't need to
Yeah.
be present here right now. So I'm really grateful to say, because Linqia has been around for 12 years now, that we do have an extraordinary culture. We have an extraordinary team of people. And so, for the most part, I would invest 90 to 95% of my time really steeped in what I love, and 5 to 10% is the stuff that I would pluck out. But, I'm actually an 80-20 girl. Like, 80% is like, whether it's what I'm eating, what I'm consuming. 20%, like, sure, let it be anything and it's fine, because there is no perfection in life, right? Nobody's
Yeah.
ever going to be doing, embodying 100% of what they desire. So I'm just so grateful for my co-founder, for the team, for our clients, and just having done this now for a good amount of time, where you sort of earn the right to be able to
Yeah.
be in that spot. And it's concerning if it's the other way around, right?
Absolutely. I like the 80-20 adoption, because I think that you're right. I think that 20% makes the 80% just that much sweeter, right? There's this level of appreciation of like, oh, I've dipped my toes in that. There is that 80-20 life is gives you the ability to say, oh, that's what the grass looks like on the other side. Yeah, no, I'm really good right here in that space. One of the other things that I really appreciate about what you said was the people element. That's the thing that you love, because ultimately, yes, there's technology for XYZ, but when it comes down to it, it's not just like in the influencer space. I strongly believe that in marketing in general, it does all boil down to people. The technology or the tools that help us become efficient in the areas that we can be efficient, but they're really not meant to like replace. They're not meant to replace people. I do think, and we'll probably dive into this, but as a side note, I do think that some brands really miss the mark when they think, oh, technology can replace a human being from that personal touch.
Yeah. One thing I want to say about that, a couple of weeks ago, I listened to a podcast with Brené Brown and Esther Perel, two of my heroes.
They're
And
amazing.
they were talking about AI. And again, not
Oh,
what you think. It's not artificial intelligence, it's artificial intimacy. And how in today's world, like intimacy is everything. It's into me see. As human beings, the greatest gift that we can give to one another is to witness one another, to see one another, to listen to
yeah.
one another. And as marketers, that is our role, right? Like
Yeah.
if and part of it's also like, seeing ourselves. And so absolutely at the core, intimacy is everything. And it's not just in personal relationships. It's intimacy with any environment you're in. You could be on a bus, you could be with an Uber driver, you could be, at the dog park. I live next to a dog park. Just this gift of being with another human being and skipping the small talk and just asking a meaningful question, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where you start to really gain a sense of what's the heartbeat, what's the pulse, and then how do we as marketers, as alchemists, create experiences, whether they be physical or virtual, to then impact people's lives. Like that is what it all boils down to.
I love that. I'm going to skip the other trend questions because I actually want to dig into that because I think that feeds into what we ultimately wanted to talk about, which was just kind of social impact storytelling and what you're talking about. Like it is the emotional connection that you need to create with your consumers, with your customers to have that people relationship so that you can actually sell your stuff, which I'd love to hear how you craft that or how you find the way to create that kind of emotional connection with people so you can truly develop a relationship with a customer who you don't really know, right? So I feel like it feels a little counterintuitive, right? I don't want to invade into their personal life, but I do want to, as a brand, still create a relationship with you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how you balance that out and how that feeds into social storytelling.
Well, I'd actually like to challenge you on getting personal, because if you most brands today are investing into social listening. They're on sites like
Mhm.
Reddit, and pick any topic. It could be anything around finance and opening up a bank account. It could be around a pharmaceutical and taking a drug for multiple sclerosis. It could be, a food brand. It could be toilet paper. It could be anything. Pick anything. And I can guarantee you people are talking about topics that their product or service touches. And
Yes.
so the key is to really, the intimacy key is to know, like, who is this customer? Who is this individual? What does their life look like? Like, what are the challenges that they're facing? What lights them up? What brings them joy? What are their aspirations? Like, as marketers, it is our role to understand the whole and not just the slither of where our product or service is. And when we actually get out there, and politicians do this really well, politicians will travel around the country. They'll not only shake hands and hug babies and kiss babies, they will actually come into the home of their constituents and go, tell me about your life.
Yeah.
And that's where you pull the heartstrings. We are all living, breathing, sleeping human beings with a heart, with emotions. And all of us are doing our best in every way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And so social impact storytelling is to truly understand who is it that you are serving. And it's not to be the solution to everything in their life, but pick a swim
Mhm.
lane. Look at Dove. Dove chose the swim lane around self-esteem. Every woman that wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror, and men, questions, am I worthy
Yeah.
enough? Am I beautiful? Like, it's incredible. And that's what they chose to then as their foundation of impact. It's no different. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, an alley bank that was formed during COVID, their swim lane was women's sports, and they were on a mission to really elevate women athletes, their pay equity, and then how they were going to do that is like, we need to get women's sports in prime time. And so everything about how they marketed and it was like authentic. It was at the core of
Yeah.
the founders and then the executives and the team. Like, the culture of the company and the brand has to match the swim lane that they're
Yes.
entering. So you can't suddenly just be like, oh, let's pick this cause and that cause. But part of really understanding your customer is to understand the personal. For me and the clients that I work with, and even like brand marketers, I'll be at an event and I will just unashamedly just skip the small talk. And I'm like, who are you? What do you care about? What lights you up? The conversation you and I are having right now. And that is my number one. That is what I'm most passionate about. Is one of our core values at Linqia is be human. Be the change you wish to see. And so start having real conversations. Start understanding the entire ecosystem that your customers live in. And part of it is vulnerability, but part of it's also permission as well, right? You can't just suddenly insert yourself somewhere, and there's a delicate way of going about doing it. But imagine if every single brand and organization takes that route. The world's going to be a much better place. We're going to tackle every single issue on the planet, and brands are going to be a major, and they already are a major part of it.
Well, and I think, when I say you don't want to get too personal, it's not that I don't want to know the customer. I think, sitting with you, I'm totally sold. Yes, absolutely. I mean, within 5 minutes, I told you, everywhere I lived in Sacramento, why I love the thing. You are the type of person that will draw someone in. That kind of energy is incredibly magnetic. But I think that, one, brands have a hard time finding that person that can pull that out so that they can get that information, right? And then two, I think that, and this is my armchair theory here, right? I think that there's still a lot of kind of corporate minded brands that are like, well, no, this is where we are. I want to get personal, but I don't want to get that personal, because that's going to get me as a brand, as a corporate brand, that could potentially, especially in this cancel culture, that could potentially get me canceled, right? So I think it's an interesting balance of that kind of level of personalization that you're talking about. So I kind of have two-folded questions, because they're two total different groups, right? For the brand who is sold on this, yes, I want to get to know my customer. I don't even know how to do it. What's your advice to I don't even know how to do it, Maria? Tell me.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it starts with that level of curiosity, and it starts with them asking that question until they get the responses either from their peers within their company. If they can't get it from their company, just open up a social listening account and just start listening. Who your customer is. And it's just starting to listen. If you're in finance, then it's well, why people, who are your customers? Why are they coming to you? There's all these different life stages. Oh, what are the life stages you want to look at? Maybe it's couples that are getting married, or maybe it's empty nesters. Maybe it's new families. Maybe it's people that are looking, to buy a second home. Great. Well, let me start social listening around that. So the social listening piece is I come from an era when I first started my marketing agency, 28 years ago, there wasn't social listening. It was focus groups. There wasn't a wealth data. You'd take months to learn this. So it is the greatest gift that we have as marketers is literally, and if you don't have enough money to open up a social listening account, just go to hashtags, start searching hashtags.
I was just going to say that too.
An area that I'm really passionate about is gun violence. I spent on my holiday 3 hours going down different rabbit holes, and, the hashtags end up being this web of watching one TikTok video after the other, after the other, after the other. And like my whole being was shaking with, I felt really like I entered that frequency, I entered that zone,
Yeah.
and it was a highly triggering and sad. And, like as marketers, we've got to be willing for it to be messy and for us to feel and embody and see things that we may not want to see. That's the extreme. But then on
Yeah.
the other side, you've also got these like portals of bliss as well. I don't know, newlyweds. Go have a look at those hashtags. Have a look at all those videos. Like it is
Yeah.
so raw. It is so authentic. It is there at our fingertips from the moment that we decide we're going to get a pretty good sense of what our customers are feeling, what they value, what's important to them. So that's one. And then the other one is actually get out there and start talking to people.
Yeah. Voice of
Start
customer.
talking to people and
Yeah.
having just real conversations.
I think those are two really fantastic tips. Actually, there were three fantastic tips, right? The one was the hashtags. It seems so kind of like simple, stupid of like, just follow a hashtag, right? Or take a look at where the hashtags take you. That second one is like going down that rabbit hole and like really, I love that you said that you went into the frequency of it, because that's exactly, well, this could be a whole other topic, but I think like you feed the algorithm is the way that I view it, right? Feed the algorithm. If you have found the hashtag, go down that rabbit hole until you get to that frequency. That audience does tell you like, oh, this is something that consistently comes up, and it's not a trend. If you take a look at the comments, right? It's really interesting to see what triggers people, and in both the positive and in the negative way, right? Like I think that gives you a ton of value as well too. I interviewed someone one time that said that they did that for TikTok, as they created a bunch of different accounts and went down each one of those rabbit holes to get a better understanding. So I think like, and that doesn't cost you any money, right? So I think anybody listening, how simple is that? And then the obvious, which is the third one, is getting that voice of customer. Ask your customers. They will tell you what they want and what they don't want, right? As long as you come from it from an authentic place, because I think that's also really key. You have to be authentic in the ask. It's not just I want to sell you. We're all in here for business. Like we're not a nonprofit. We're not doing these things for free, but like you have to be genuine in the question that you're asking, which I think is really key. Which brings me to that second audience that I talked about, the big brand, the corporate brand that's kind of afraid of like the cancel culture and how do I connect with my audience without getting too personal. And what do you say to the big brand? What do you say to the big brand? Is it influencers because they have that connection, or is there something else?
Yeah, so big brands, what I've observed over the last couple of decades, and it's because you have big companies like Unilever that are just going all out, that
Yeah.
they're giving permission to the others. And we're seeing a change in guard as well in terms of the CMOs and CEOs. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
noticed, but a lot more female CEOs of these big corporations. They're shifting what they stand for in being more of a healthcare company versus being a food company. Like it's fascinating if you were to map the top 20 consumer packaged goods companies, you're seeing mass transformation that's taking place. And so, for some of those brands that aren't quite there yet, then it's really it's identifying what are those potential swim lanes. Like the change has to come from within, like bottom
Yes.
line. If it's not there within, I'm actually seeing a lot of marketers that have maybe become frustrated where it's like it's not happening, and they give it a shot. They try to advocate. They invite their management to come to events like ANA is like fantastic.
Yeah.
Media post events, like it's through cross pollinating and showing what other brands are doing that are competitors to inspire that curiosity to say, okay, what is it that we could be doing? And it's always a crawl, walk, run. Right? Like
Yeah.
I've firsthand witnessed, some of the clients we've worked on over the years, and it's only now 10 years later that they're like, we're ready. We're ready.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we need to wait for another 10 years. It'll probably happen, a lot sooner. because the pressure is coming from the customers. So
Yes.
ultimately it's the customers, it's the communities, it's the social ecosystems that are swarming these brands to say, please take a stand. Like,
Yeah.
and they're almost holding these brands to ransom to like commanding change. So change is either going to happen internally with a few brave marketers that do stand for something, and they're taking the approaches of inspiring and educating and cross-pollinating and showing examples, or it's going to come from the customer base. And that's
Yeah.
where brands will either have to respond or lose market share. It's that simple.
Yeah. That's so true. They will lose market share because I think that you're right. There's most definitely a shift in everything that's going on. As a marketer, I definitely feel that, right? It's not just even the need of being on social media. It is that need of like genuine connection because there's so much noise out there. Do you know what I mean? You really have to stand out and have a firm grasp of who you are as a brand, and you have to personify yourself. Who's the person behind, XYZ brand? What do you like? What's your tone? Like when you infuse a little bit of personality, it's amazing what the impact can be. And then on top of that, you genuinely connect with your audience. It's a whole other ball game. I actually think some brands who ignore this have the potential to kind of die out and fizzle. If you miss that mark, like the audience in this day and age sees right through it. There's no amount of discounts that will get you that stickiness that really is what builds like a legacy brand, right? Like, well, I don't know if I'm getting too existential about it, but like I truly believe that you have to make yourself sticky as a brand, and you do have to have like that kind of emotional connection. And I know that we were talking about just kind of social impact selling, and you actually have a code. It's called, and I put it on the side so I wouldn't forget, the give code. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what this give code is. What does it stand for? What does it look like? What is it in action? How does it work?
Yeah, the give code is something that was came as a result of I was asked to do a talk in Bentonville in front of 1,000 women, and it was a little daunting to be like, okay, what is it that I can share with these women marketers? Um, Miss America was speaking before me, and the head of Kimberly Clark, and it's like, okay, like I'm a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, with an Australian accent. Like, what is it that I can truly share with these women? It was about 4 or 5 years ago. So I paused for a moment and I just asked myself the question, and this is a question that I inspire every marketer, like, how did I get into marketing? Like, what's led me to this point? Like, what has fueled me, nourished me? Like, you sort of just pause and reflect for a moment. And I'm somebody that practices gratitude every single morning. And so I actually worked with somebody to just unpack every part of my journey. And where we came to after like a few weeks of going down a few rabbit holes was this acronym called the GIVE code, GIVE. And what it stands for is, first and foremost, is generosity. As a
Mhm.
marketer, like, something I was taught very early, my first boyfriend, his grandmother, who was, 80 odd, blind, this is in Australia, she's like, Maria, there's two kinds of people in the world. There's people that come from Givington and there's people that come from Takington. And pretty quickly, are they takers or are they givers? And I remember when I heard that story, I was like, I never want to be a taker, right? Like, and so what I learned was to really embody this sense of generosity. So every person that I meet, with curiosity, you would understand who they are, what they need. And as you're out in the world and you're reading and you're meeting people and you're like, again, connecting the dots, I would always find a way to give back. So
Mhm.
generosity was something that I learned, and by default, I attracted it, right? Like, it's just, it works, that life works that way. I stands for this infinite mindset, right? It's like, are you someone that comes from scarcity, or are you somebody that comes from abundance? And as
Yeah.
marketers, we're always solving for opportunities. Like, what's that gap? And so I would always bring into every situation this infinite mindset of like, what are the possibilities here? V, which we've spoken a little bit about, is
Mhm.
vulnerability. Part of the human condition is that we also experience suffering and challenges. And that's what products and solutions and services are for. So, in order to truly connect with other human beings, when you expose a part of yourself and you feel safe to, that's what builds relationships. And
Yeah.
that's what we spoke about, that brands can do that at scale by surfacing customer stories of vulnerability. And then we also touched on this earlier, and it's energy. E stands for energy.
Mhm.
And what are you doing as a marketer to harness your energy? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating 80-20? You're eating healthy food, drinking enough water? Are you connecting with your children? Are you connecting with your loved ones? Are you in nature? Are you meditating? Like, what is it that inspires you and fills your cup? Because when your energy is infectious, and it is in a state where you can inspire others, because that, as
Mhm.
marketers, we've got to inspire our teams, we've got to inspire our clients, we've got to inspire an entire community. That transcends into
It
everything
does.
that we do. And so the give code is something that I practice every single day, and I by default attract people into my life that embody that as well. And it creates this exponential ecosystem of possibility and growth. So,
I love this because to me, what I hear is that it's truly a magnet, right? And, going back to something that you had said earlier, it's all about like that starts with me, and that then gets infused into everybody, and it is a magnet. When you have all of those four things like working together, people want to be around it, even the grumpiest people, I would even say. Like, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. Like, people want to feel good. I I don't think that my boss listens to this, which is fantastic. But one of the things that he has told me is he's like, you smile even when you're giving bad news. It's very disheartening because I don't know how to take it. And like, and he goes, I find myself nodding and saying, yeah. And I smile back. And to me, that's kind of like that same thing as like give, right? That element of it. You're going to get what you put out. So you may as well put out like that you may as well put out that energy and like literally represent every letter of that as well. And I do really appreciate how you've been able to connect it back to marketing as well too, because I'm going to make this assumption that this is your personal ethos as well too, that you actually exist in this universe in this give sort of a way, and you've been able to connect that with marketing, which I think is really key.
well, I love the direction you're leading here, because what often marketers struggle with, but human beings struggle with in the professional world, is like this clear cut, here's who I need to be in
Yeah.
in my job or in my role or in my company, especially when you have a certain company culture.
Yeah.
And then here's who I am with my friends and with my family. And I'm a huge proponent of like, show up as your best self. Like, you don't need to give up that sense of humor or your passion or your idiosyncrasies, as long as you're not offending anybody or
Yeah.
doing any harm. But like, every single person that I interview that joins our company, I'm like, please, like, promise me one thing: do not check a part of yourself at the door. You are welcome as you are, because as marketers and as we collaborate, and the kind of brands that we're working with and the people that we're reaching, we need diversity of
Yeah.
personalities, diversity of thought, diversity. Like, it is so important to be representative of,
Yes.
of, the marketers that we're working with and the brands that we're representing, because that's the juicy, crunchy bits that help you
Yeah.
span the messiness through to the beauty of what it is that we're marketing. So it is so important to practice a level of self-awareness
Yes.
and gauge, like, am I like, I don't walk into a room and go, here I am, and like, this level of confidence.
I do.
No,
I'm just kidding.
it's like it's sensing into the energy space and then going on that journey. And like, I'm a huge proponent of meeting people where they're at. So if I am
Yeah.
encountering someone that's very grumpy or very stressed, it's meeting them where they are and then paving a path that might take some time to finding a way to dance together energetically, and through storytelling, through shared experiences. Like that's the fun part of, and that's also the same for marketers, that are
Yeah.
representing a whole gamut of customers. It's meeting them where they're at and not being tone deaf. But that's where we truly get to alchemize these energetic spaces. One of my favorite films that I watched recently was All the Light We Cannot See, and
Oh, I
and
don't know that.
and I think that was the name of the film, but it was tuning into the subtleties of voice and visuals and what's going on in the world and how we can impact one another through our energy. And that's just something that I'm having a lot of fun experimenting with, because
Yeah.
ultimately, once a social media post or a visual or a video or something that's in written form goes out into the ether, and that's it. It's reaching people, it's touching people, it's impacting them. So we all get to influence that in one way or another.
That's so true. I am really curious because you are a successful woman, a successful entrepreneur in what is typically a male dominated, at one point or another, it was more male dominated. So I'm really curious what kind of challenges well, I'm going to assume that you have had challenges in your career, right? Especially with the kind of mentality that you have and this connection. I don't know that that's always been something that people gravitate to or respond to. And maybe this is me projecting a little bit, right? If I'm being completely honest and vulnerable, and it's just you and me and the listeners here. But like, I'm really interested to hear, like, kind of what were some of the challenges or what have been some of the challenges as a woman in business that you've kind of overcome to kind of help any woman who is listening, who wants to be that, who wants to bring their best foot forward and be vulnerable as well too, so that they can make those connections.
Absolutely. It's such an important question, and something that's been very present with me from the moment that I was very, very young. My
Mhm.
family came to Australia as immigrants. I was two, my sister was one. They spoke no English, they had no money. So I've always had this level of awareness of being the underdog, or stepping
Mhm.
into spaces where I wasn't like everybody else. And so my childhood very much taught me that mindset is everything. Like fast forward to 12 years ago, I arrived from Europe. Without sort of going down that rabbit hole, but I arrived to San Francisco, and I was 7 months pregnant. I did not study at any Ivy League college any college in the United States. I hadn't worked for a US company. My identity was very much stripped, and I was like 7 months
Mhm.
pregnant. And coming to Silicon Valley, trying to find a co-founder, venture capitalist, brand marketers that would be our initial clients, building a team, lawyers, the whole lot. Like, I was very aware that I showed up with almost nothing that was of value to the people that I was looking to connect with. But I had such conviction in the vision around what it is that we were building. And I believed in myself. And I didn't allow myself to believe any of the stories, because there are like countless stories of people that didn't make it, and countless
Yeah.
stories of people that were turned away. And the mindset was everything. And
Mm.
so what I've quickly adopted was like, well, what are my superpowers? Like, if I'm going to show up at a networking event or a dinner table or in a venture capitalist office, like, who am I? Like, what is my value? So I became very clear on who I was, the vision that was just the conviction in the vision, and then the plan that I put in place. And it was the energy. It was just like, I'm not turning back. I had a choice to go to Australia and deliver my first baby and live the white picket fence life. And I'm not doing it because I believe in this. So that's the first.
Yeah.
And then, the second challenge was motherhood. When you're building a technology company in Silicon Valley, and I came to the United States eventually with a 6-week-old baby, and then I had a second child. Like, you got to make choices as a mother.
Yep.
And I wasn't going to abandon my children. I wasn't going to outsource. I was not going to outsource the care of my children. So I very quickly realized, and I wasn't willing to let go of the company and the vision. Like, I was all in on both of them. So that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where
Mhm.
you've got your feet in the fire. And that's when you start to make very harsh decisions on how you invest your time. You become extraordinarily discerning, and you take
Mhm.
risks. You make bets and you stand by them. Some are going to work, some are not going to work, but I'm not going to feel any shame or regret around decisions that I made that didn't work out. You've got to just pick yourself up and move on. So being a mother presented extraordinary challenges because I wasn't a free agent traveling around and it was just like, no, this
Yes.
is the situation. And they say that your every point of refuge has its price, and your
Yeah.
strengths are in your weaknesses and your weaknesses are in your strengths. And when you're able to hold both of those and work with them, it exponentially becomes your superpower. And I've seen that over and over again with many other mothers. So they were really the two key challenges that I faced, but then was able to turn them into superpowers that then fuel whatever level of success.
I'm obsessed with that. As a mother myself, I am all on board with everything that you've said in regards to that. There is something about being a mother and having your children and having to really make those decisions and not necessarily wanting to have to, like, you shouldn't have to choose, right? Like, oh, it's either this career or it's that, right? And I've been very fortunate to have a, supportive mother who has always, been also by my side as well too, and my husband too, just also at my side, just being like true partners in that. But there's nothing like children to make you hyper focused on, like, all right, what's actually really important and what's not really important, and what's really important to me and what's not really important to me. I think about, like, if I was in the same seat I am in now and had all the time in the world, but I had started it 20 years ago because I started my family first. It would be a whole different ball game. Like, you have to be able to balance that out. I mean, like, I think about that, like, well, now my kids are college age, so slightly empty nester, but now I can double down on my career, right? Now I am that a bit of that free agent that you're talking about, but I'm also a mama. So as soon as they call me, I'm like, forget it. Like, they need me, and you have to be able to give that 100% but to be able to make those decisions quickly when you have all the time in the world, you kind of use the time that you have. And I think in motherhood, you have to really, it shrinks. I have to make a decision now. I don't actually have like 6 months to decide and think and all of these things. This is a very real thing. And I love that you said that you've turned it into your superpower. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever thought about it as like a superpower. Yeah, I can totally make that decision. just like that, because I've had to in the past, because it's a muscle that I use on such a regular basis that I'm like, I don't even think about it. Yes, yes, no. Because in my head, I've already like kind of walked it all the way through, and I can live with the outcome of whatever decision that it is that I have, because always bet on yourself. When it comes down to it, always bet on myself, then I'm good to go. I know exactly what I'm capable of. So I love these challenges that you've brought up. I have one final question for you. If you knew then what you know now, what is the marketing or non-marketing advice that you give to yourself?
There's actually two. And we spoke about it before we started recording. And that is, it's the silence between the notes that makes the music.
Mm,
It's the silence. And in this day and age, we are helter skelter, like pedal to the metal. We like, as soon as we wake up, we're like on, and as soon as we put our head on the pillow, we're off. And that's unnecessary.
yeah.
You're actually really doing yourself so much disjustice and everyone around you. So take the time to breathe, take the time out, the pause, take time out with your family, go on that retreat, like nourish yourself. And it may not feel at that point in time that you're giving enough, but that nourishment is what actually enables you to tap into so much more energy and creativity that allows you to show up and create even more impact. So that's one key area. I mean, that's a continual practice for me. And then the second one, you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend time with. And I would even go further than that. Building communities and roundtables. I was on a call earlier with another female founder of an influencer company, and we totally like soul merged. Like, wow, there you go! Like, we finally meet. We didn't even talk about our companies or the creator space, but what has become really important is that we come together with a tribe of other people that share our values, that share our mission, the higher purpose, or it could be with some of the day-to-day struggles, and we meet regularly, whether it be virtually or in person, and having multiple different communities and roundtables is so mission critical, because as human beings, we learn from one another, we share experiences, and that one idea or that one book or that one resource can unlock so much value that without it, we're exponentially behind. And
Mm-hmm.
so community building at that grassroots level and coming together is, combined with just having that nourishment downtime, is what I desire for every single human being that's listening to this podcast.
I love that. Community and listening in the silence, or just sitting in the silence. I think those two are really such great pieces of advice. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I could probably talk to you for an hour and a half more down 12 different rabbit holes that we have. You're the first person that I've skipped questions to just so that we could get to it. Thank you so much for coming on here and just sharing your thoughts and your energy. And I hope that every listener has also felt that energy that I feel just in this, even virtually, I can feel it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Katya. Thank you.
Was this a good episode, or was this a good episode? I know it's tough to choose between those choices. Let's dive into your key takeaways. Key takeaway number 1, the value of being a good listener in marketing and in life. While this was not in the nitty gritty of kind of that strategy conversation, this was definitely a learning for Maria early on in the interview, as well as early on in her life. And I think it's a key to being effective with marketing. Whether marketing is in your title or not, there is a value to being curious and listening to others. On top of that, it also makes you a really good storyteller. We didn't dive into that. That's just facts. Now, while Maria found that it was her kind of first introduction to the concept of connecting the dots to add value to any ecosystem you're part of, it does stand out for me because listening is key to understanding the needs of your audience. You want to create solutions for them that either come in a form of value directly from your product or even in creating new ways to add value for your audience. Now, there is a great quote that I found on the value of listening that I actually really want to read directly because it's just too good not to. Now, it's from a book, You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy. I actually think it has a longer title than that. So forgive me, Kate Murphy, but it is a quote from your book. Here's the quote. To listen well is to figure out what's on someone's mind and demonstrate that you care enough to want to know. It's what we all crave, to be understood as a person with thoughts, emotions, and intentions that are unique and valuable and deserving of attention. Listening is not about teaching, shaping, critiquing, appraising, or showing how it should be done. Listening is about the experience of being experienced. It is a total mic drop quote for me. Like, I really think it encompasses the personal side as well as the business side from a marketing and branding perspective. Ultimately, as brands, we want or should want our audience to have a genuine experience with us. So, long story short, listen, capital LISTEN, listen. Key takeaway number 2, use social listening to gain marketing insights. Now, she recommends brands start with curiosity and social listening. And social listening on platforms like Reddit, which is an interesting one. I'd love to hear everyone's feedback on that. But it's also on hashtag monitoring. And what this allows you to do is to kind of go down that rabbit hole and better understand an audience's life stages, the topics that they're talking about, the products that they're talking about, right? For Maria, she calls it entering that frequency to truly understand an issue and a customer's perspective. Because for the most part, people are their raw selves and reveal a lot more to their feelings and what they're looking for when it comes to social media or what they put out there, whether it's what they post or what they put in comments. So you can really gain invaluable insights to authentically connect and understand your target audience. Now, my final key takeaway, and this one's my favorite and probably has a little less to do with marketing and more from like a stage of life. Okay. So my last key takeaway is I may actually be a superhero. Hear me out. The challenges that Maria faced that we dove into towards the end of the conversation when I asked her about being a woman entrepreneur in technology in the Silicon Valley. The 2 that we really dove into was 1, her arriving in San Francisco 7 months pregnant without traditional credentials that made her doubt her networking connections. And 2, balancing motherhood with building a tech company in Silicon Valley. Now, her attitude remained steadfast, and she adopted this mindset of a perceived weakness as actually a potential strength, focused on conviction in her vision. That spoke to me so hard because for me as a woman in business, I'm using a lot of quad work, my friends, to march up that mountain. And while I have so much support from my family and friends, as a woman in business, you have to bet on yourself. Now, what I really honed in on was when she used motherhood as a superpower. Never in my life has someone been able to articulate that in a way that just clicked for me. As a woman, you don't have to choose between career and family. You just have to get really good at making quick but strategic decisions. You've got to learn to prioritize. Oh my goodness, you have to learn to prioritize because you have people depending on you and you are a master juggler. The amount of mental tabs I have opened and organized, no one can truly understand except other women. But you know what else? You learn what hill you're willing to die on choose your ballot. You choose your battles, your challenges. Also, knowing when to lean on people. Now, this one I am truly still trying to master. It's the art of delegation in life and marketing. We will leave that for another episode because I have too much to say about it, and I should probably bring on a therapist for that. The moral of the story is I just might be a superhero. Now, what did you take away from today's episode? I want to hear. Post it on the Let's Talk Marketing LinkedIn page or the YouTube channel. Leave it in a review on Apple. Slide into my DMs. Let's keep this conversation going. A very special thank you to my podcast editor, Johnny Ike. And thanks to you for spending your time with me today. Until next time, may the conversation flow, the laughter linger, and the outlook remain optimistic but grounded in reality. This is Katya, signing off.